All right. Well, this is the part I was excited to get to. So David has been just really a fantastic customer of ours. I'm going to let him give a little introduction of himself and Advanced Local. But so David, if you could maybe start there, can you share with everyone a little background on Advanced Local and kind of relevance to this webinar?
Yeah, for sure. So for all that may not know, Advanced Local is one of the largest media groups in the U.S. We operate leading news and information companies in more than 20 cities across the U.S., reaching more than 50 million uniques on a monthly basis. What that looks like in reality is we've got about 9 local media groups across the country in major areas like Portland, Oregon, with the Oregonian and OregonLive.com. Several papers across Michigan, as well as MLive.com. And then about 7 or 8 newspapers in New Jersey, which roll up to the digital site NJ.com. So we're in a lot of various pockets across the U.S., but we also do have a national presence based on all of the other people that are accessing that content. We hold the #1 position in all of our markets, which means that our brands are very, and we focus on this in our mission and our core values. We're deeply rooted in the communities that we serve, and corollary to that, we're also best positioned to create deep relationships with both our users and consumers in those communities. So from an advertising perspective, which is the side of the business that I sit on, we're very focused on providing a full service approach to our clients' marketing needs. So it's not just display, it's not just video, but really providing everything in the life cycle of a campaign. So whether a client of ours, whether that's a mom and pop, an SMB, a more regional player, we provide web dev, SEO, campaign strategy, any kind of advertising on our owned and operated sites, anything outside of our sites through extended reach partners, and a lot around reporting and analytics. So a lot of breadth and a lot of depth to what we do. A little bit more about me. I work on the customer success team, which is a rebranding of our ad ops and client services groups, which is a centralized group. We support all of our local media groups and other teams really from an ad operations and an advertising technology perspective. So we're in effect the ad product experts. We handle all of the campaign fulfillment, all of the ad campaigns that come in from our various groups across the country. And we also have teams that optimize those campaigns and report back on them for success. Besides the day-to-day with on the advertising side, I also work very closely with product teams, the content team, the consumer revenue teams to make sure that any changes to our sites and anything that would be seen by a user is done in a coordinated and collaborative manner.
Super. Great intro. I would not have done it justice. So let's talk about, I guess, your finding of Admiral and or choosing Admiral. Give us some color on that. Where were you on any of these, ad block or revenue topics, and why did you choose Admiral?
Yeah, definitely. So we've had our toes in the ad blocking space for quite a while. So I guess it was back in late 2015, early 2016, where kind of the ad blockopolis or blocklips, whatever you want to call it, was coming around, and it was the only thing that was leading in all of the industry sites and magazines at that point. At that point, we really focused and formed a task force to review what our approach should be, how should we react as a company. And that task force, which was the right thing to do at the time, was a combination of ad operations, of product, of consumer revenue, revenue strategy, our UX team. So it was a really cross-department collaboration, which made all the sense in the world. At that point, we agreed that we needed to do something and work with a vendor that in order to understand what the impact of ad blocking was on our sites and be able to respond to that from a messaging standpoint, and being able to get the word out to our ad block users that our local journalism and our award-winning journalism is supported by advertising, and we need you to whitelist. So we worked with another vendor in the space for these last couple of years, testing various strategies, messages, different types of creative, different types of messaging cadences. And what we were finding overall is that the whitelist rates and the incremental revenue that was coming from users that eventually whitelisted was subpar. It was never really substantial enough to put in the amount of work that we were. So at the beginning of, I would say probably late 2018, early 19, we thought about looking outside, doing a vendor audit, and really just time and time again, just through the industry and my peers in the industry, the Admiral just kept on coming up again and again and again. So we brought them in, we talked to them, and we're really just kind of blown away with their approach. And I think a lot of it just comes from just the amount of people that they have on the product engineering side, their work in the music space, and how it was applicable to the ad industry as well, and to media. We eventually went with Admiral, mainly for those reasons, plus the ability to transition quickly from one vendor to the next. They were very early on sharing insights about how we could improve our whitelist rates. They pretty much just opened up the kimono very quickly and showed us what we could be doing better. And also, even though we're only doing the ad blocking side with Admiral right now, we were at the initial onset very impressed with the full product suite, like Dan had mentioned, around their VRM platform. And last but not least, I think just the focus on customer support. So, as I had mentioned a couple of years ago, we internally branded our group as customer success, and we thought that was really cool at the time. But clearly, Dan and the Admiral team out-customered us and called themselves customer love, which again, we can't take anything away from that. But I mean, to be frank, to be fair, their customer support has been, and we can talk about this during the next question, has been really phenomenal.
Terrific. Thanks, David. So let's talk about that. So how was the rollout? I like to tout all this one tag stuff and what have you. And to be honest, when we're talking to publishers, a lot of times I think they roll their eyes at us because everyone claims ease of deployment, and then it always turns into a 3-month deployment. So can you just talk about the rollout?
Yeah, definitely. So even going back a little bit, one of your earlier slides was talking about the Frankenstein and all of the things on the back end that we ask our various product teams to upload. It's just another little piece of JavaScript. Over the last, I'd say, 2 years, we've been very focused on UX and trying to improve everything that we can in order to make our sites and the content the most compelling thing possible. And that includes, obviously, tech bloat, tag bloat, and having fast and high performance sites. So we've been really pushed from multiple parties across the company to get rid of our tag bloat. And so we've done that in several ways, which just, again, highlights the fact that the Admiral team and their approach to this and having the one tag approach that really powers everything, whether you're using one piece of it or several components to it, is really a really nice approach. So that we were sold on from day one. But to talk about the rollout specifically, it was super quick. So even from signature to being ready to go live, I think it took maybe a week and a half. So it was really, really, really quick. And again, oftentimes, these kind of projects get slowed up because usually it's not because of the vendor, but because of the publisher. So we were good on our side. Admiral was very good on their side, and we were able to get up and live very quickly. So again, going back to the customer love approach, we were our customer love guy, Brian, has been phenomenal. He was always available for calls, always quick responses to emails, always willing to jump on a screen share super quickly, not just even on weekdays, but also I think a few weekends. So again, just wonderful, quick rollout.
Fantastic. All right. So, and then the money question, I'm sure a lot of pubs are curious about. So how have we performed? Have you been happy with it? Do you have any numbers around it you can share?
Yeah, very happy. So again, numbers are always going to be relative to the size of the publisher. So given that we are pretty big, the revenue will be big. I mean, you had mentioned that NBC has already seen 1 million. We went live on June 1, and from that day forward through, basically almost the end of August, we've seen about 150K worth of recovered revenue. So this is revenue coming from people who have been messaged and told to whitelist and disable their ad blocker, becoming users that are now looking at advertising again. And that is true incremental revenue that we weren't getting anytime before this. So a lot of money out of the gate, and definitely way higher than the previous vendor. So if you fast forward that and assume, on an annualized rate, that 150 turns into 600. So that is definitely not something to sneeze at. So we're really looking forward to to having that money available. When we saw the first months of recovered revenue, myself was freaked out in a good way. But also our leadership and our executives were very pleased with it, again, because it's very light lift, minimal lift on our side. A lot of the work is done on the Admiral side, so it's really just almost found money effectively. And then the other thing which I thought was very interesting, and Dan mentioned ARPU, the average revenue per user metric, which again, I think more publishers need to think about. It was something that was on our radar, and we started to pay a little bit more attention to it. But what's interesting is that, from the recovered visitors, we're seeing the ARPU of them being 40 to 50% higher than the ARPU of non-blockers, which just shows you, because a lot of users don't even realize that they have an ad blocker on. Once you put a message in front of them that says that you are getting access to this award-winning journalism, this local journalism that you can't find anywhere else, it's advertising that supports that. It really kind of tugs at the heartstrings a bit and makes them realize, okay, I do need to support this. And I think based on that, once they do whitelist, you start seeing more engaged end users.
Super. Yeah, a couple bits of color I'd share on that. We've seen that across our entire network, that users who we can recover just consume at a higher rate than the average visitor. These ad block visitors, they are tech savvy, they are internet savvy, they're rabid readers, and so the ability to unlock them, you're not unlocking an average visitor, you're unlocking someone that's actually better than average, which is pretty exciting from an ARPU standpoint. The other thing I'd note is that the approach that we've taken, and there's a picture of it kind of down here in the bottom right, we didn't even do the hardest ask. And so when we talk about these revenue numbers, this wasn't a hard ask. This is something that we call smart engage, which kind of intelligently early on in the relationship kind of gives an easy out for people if they don't want to turn their ad blocker off. But then every now and then, if they've now consumed your content many times without compensating you, it'll give them an extra nudge where they actually have to turn off their ad blocker. And by doing that kind of intelligent engagement, that alone can double recovery rates versus if you just kind of always gave people the out. So anyway, a couple of interesting tidbits. And I guess, the money question for us, would you recommend Admiral? Any lessons learned or guidance for others on this call?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, the short answer is definitely yes. Major recommendation. One, because I think it's just one tag, super easy implementation. So the fact that it's one tag, the fact that you've got great customer support, it was just a super easy implementation. Again, like I had mentioned, the Admiral team, the customer love team specifically, was really helpful every step of the way. So, and doing a bulk of the work, creating the messages, providing best practices around what we should be messaging users. And then just once you're live, just the day-to-day support and helping you understand the revenue that you're recovering, and if there's any additional things that you should be doing, in the next month or future months. And also, too, again, just like in comparison from Admiral to our previous customer or previous vendor, the whitelist rates are night and day, and they make you as a publisher or you as the person who's responsible for ad blocking look like you made a wonderful choice. And because they do a lot of the work, you can still internally take all the credit with your boss or your executives or whomever. So one last thing that I would point out is that we always prefer to work with vendors that feel like a part of your team and are willing to not I guess put skin in the game, not in any kind of revenue or monetary way, but really put their neck out and feel like they are in it with you. And just the level of trust I've seen and the level of support I've seen so far from the Admiral team, I would definitely recommend that, because they really do feel like they're on your team.